plays an important part in criminology. It has, over time, been overlooked, and its contribution towards criminology have gone noticed. Photography makes it possible to document any form of evidence, which can be required within the criminal justice system. Both forensic and legal photography provides investigative and exculpatory materials that are relevant in the courts of law. Photography has over time been used by journalists in the investigative or undercover journalism. Photography is also significant in crime scene, especially where vivid demonstration and description about criminal incident is needed. Photography gives an overview or a bigger picture of a crime scene. Photography is also used to produce evidence in cases where crimes against humanity such as genocide and ethnic cleansing have been committed. In that, the photography provides an overview of the strategies that the criminals employ, and by so doing, the officers will devise counter strategies. Photography is also used to add more emotion, effect to any inculpatory or exculpatory form of evidence. Photography is also used in forensic to document, identify, and convict criminals. Photography is also used in cold cases to produce tangible image as well as enable investigators to comprehend what actually transpired. It is vital in cold cases in that it gives room for any new witness, provides a better analysis of the causes of any crime, and often leads to better and conclusive results. Photography can be used in cold cases as a compiling tool to exonerate those who had been previously accused of committing an offense. However, so let's move on. We go to or focus in the main topic, that Chapter 1. Photography definitions, historical background, and principles. So, photography literally means drawing with light, which derives from the Greek photo, meaning light, and graph, meaning to draw. Photography also the process of recording and image a photograph on light-sensitive film, or in the cases of digital photography via digital, electronic, or magnetic memory. So, here, the literal definition of photography. The word photography is a derivative of two Greek words, phos, which means light, and graphia, meaning write. Therefore, photography is best translated to write with light. Next, modern definitions. Photography is an art or science which deals with the reproduction of image through the action of light upon sensitized materials. With the aid of the camera and its accessories and the chemical process involved therein. Next, technical legal definition. Modern photography may be defined as any means for the chemical, thermal, electrical, or electronic recording of the image of scene or subject formed by some type of radiant energy, including gamma rays, X-rays, ultraviolet rays, visible light, and infrared rays. This definition is broad enough to include not only the conventional methods of photography, but almost any new process that may be developed. So, historical evolution of forensic photography. Like the days of the creating in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. We go to history of photography. History of photography, a method of recording the image of an object through the action of light or related radiation on a light-sensitive material. The word derived from the Greek focus, light, and graphein to draw, was first used in the 1830s. Go to history of camera obscura. Camera obscura is an old device which was used for experiments in optics, astronomy, and in art. Its effect became noticeable in 15th century BC. In time, it became necessary part of photography camera. So, let's go police photography. Police photography is an art or science which deals with the study of the principles of photography, the preparation of photographic evidence, and its application to police work. Next, forensic photography, an art or science which deals photographically documents crime scene and evidence for laboratory examination and analyze purpose of court trial. History photographic film. The beginning of photography images were made on plates. First metal, then glass. In time, films made from systematic materials become cheaper and easier to use and slowly replace plates. Daguerreotype was the first successful and commercial type of photography, although relatively a complex method. It is spread throughout the world and remained popular until simple methods appeared and replaced it. History of digital photography. First, digital cameras appeared in 1970 and were heavy and unpractical. They improved in time and are now used by everybody from amateurs on their mobile phones to professionals who make living using them. We go to photography and criminology. Use of visual image. The tools necessary for producing them are most everywhere within the society. Photography has over time basic necessity into the middle class, upper class citizens, and in the criminology department, despite the fact that photography plays an important part in criminology. It has over time been overlooked and its contribution towards criminology have gone unnoticed. Significance and the strong points of photography. Photography makes it possible to document any form of evidence which can be required within the criminal justice system. Both forensic and legal photography provide investigate and exculpatory materials that are relevant and in the courts of law. Photography has over time been used by journalists in investigate or undercover journalism. Photography is also significant in crime scenes, especially where vivid demonstration and description about a criminal incident is needed. Photography and cold cases. Photography is also used in cold cases to produce tangible image as well as enable investigators to comprehend what actually transpired. Disadvantage, weak points. Regardless of the significance of photography to criminology, the visual evidence which are used in investigation is subject to manipulation by photographers. This has even been made worse by the rapid growth in the use of digital cameras. How to fully exploit photography? In order to fully exploit the photography, the public in order should be encouraged to embrace the use of the digital technology which creates room for immediate image review. It also permits image manipulation, which an area that requires to be properly understood. In that the public is not aware that image from digital cameras do have a time and date which reduce the chance of manipulation. The law enforcers should also embrace the use of photography as a research and training tool in the criminal justice system. Seeking the public awareness will go a long way in eliminating the wrong perception about authenticity. In conclusion, the significant contribution of photography towards criminology should no longer be taken lightly, and the two should be integrated in the bid to reduce the rising insecurity problem among cities. Also, though the initial cost outlay of the digital is high, the public and other bodies should be encouraged to switch it. Equipment 1,700. The portable camera obscura, latent for the dark chamber, was used by artists or painters to get accurate perspective with natural scenes and scale of their subject. Chemicals 1726177. Light sensitive of silver nitrate and silver chloride solution was discovered and investigated in 1800 Thomas with G. Wood and Hampey. They reproduced photographs. True photography 1839 is generally known as the birth year of photography. William Henry Fox Talbot explained a process he had invented, calotype, at the Royal Society of London. The calotype used paper with its surface fibers impregnated with light-sensitive compounds. Louis Jacques Mandé, the Curie, made a public demonstration in Paris. The Curie type, in collaboration with Joseph Nicéphore. The Curie type form is an image directly in the silver surface of a metal plate. With Talbot's calotype, the fixation was only partial, while the Curie type's image were made permanent with the use of hypo. 1848. Abel Nipi de Saint-Victor introduced a process of negatives on glass using album, egg white as blinding medium. 1850. Louis Desiree Balancourt Evard introduced a printing paper code with albumin to achieve a glossy surface. 1851. Frederick Scott Archer published a wet plate process when collodium, a viscous liquid that dries to a tough, flexible, and transparent film replaced albumin. 1835. Gelatin emulsion printing paper was commercially introduced. Base films in 1889. During this time, the cameras were crude, the lenses could not form a true image, and the materials required long exposures and could not produce colors in shades of gray. Criminal application. The history of forensic science and criminal investigations is both rich and exciting. The discoveries and observation of our producer is likewise surprising and comforting. The great men and women who paved a path of enlightenment in crime investigations continue to teach us long after their deaths. These are the aspirations that we should aspire to, though we are fortunate to work in a profession with a strong foundation and bright, seemingly endless future. Legal foundation of photography evidence. For black and white photographs, 1859. Daguerreotype was used in a civil case, Liu versus United States 2-3, Howard 515, to decide on the authenticity of photographs in comparing signatures. 1874. In criminal case, introducing photograph as identification evidence under Luke versus Commonwealth 76 PA 340. For color photographs, 1943. Civil litigation, Green versus City and County of Denver 3 Colo 390142 PT D277, involving color photography of spoiled meat in violation of a health ordinance prohibiting the skill of putrid meat to the public. Criminology education. 190. DRRA Reese Fisher, the University of Lausanne, Switzerland, set up one of the first academic curricula in forensic science. His forensic photography department grew into Lausanne Institute of Police Science. 1950. August Vollmer, Chief of Police of Berkeley, California, established the School of Criminology at the University of California. Berkeley Paul Craig presided over the major of criminalistics within the school. 1954. In the Philippines, the school which pioneered criminology education is the Plaridel Education Institution, now the Philippine College of Criminology at 641 Sales Cruz, Manila. The principles of photography. Different authors of photography books have different approach in explaining the principles of photography, but to our mind, the one expounded by Avelino Aquino, a photograph is the mechanical and chemical result of photography. To produce a photograph, light is needed aside from sensitized materials. Light reflected or radiated by a subject must reach the sensitized materials, while all other must be excluded the exclusion of all unwanted and unnecessary light is achieved by placing the sensitized material inside a camera. The amount of light on the sensitized material surface after exposure is not immediately visible to the eyes. To make the form image visible, it must undergo the development process. The visual effect that results from the chemical processing is dependent on the quantity and quality of the exposure light. More light will yield an opaque or black shades on the sensitized material after development. The title will produce a transparent or white shade. The varying shade of gray will finally form the complete image. General consideration. As a means of visual communication and expression, photography has distinct aesthetic capabilities. In order to understand them, one must first understand the characteristic of the process itself. One of the most important characteristic is immediately, usually, but not necessarily the image that is recorded to form by a lens in a camera. Upon exposure to the light forming the image, the sensitive material undergoes changes in its structure, a lenient but reverse. Image usually called a negative is formed, and the image become visible by development and permanent by fixing with sodium thiosulfate called hypo. With modern materials, the processing may take place immediately or may be delayed for weeks or months. The essential elements of the image are usually established immediately at the time of exposure. This characteristic is unique to photography and sets it apart from other ways of picture making. The seemingly automatic recording of an image by photography has given the process a sense of authenticity shared by no other picture-making technique. The photograph possesses in the popular mind such apparent accuracy that the age the camera does not lie has become an accepted if erroneous cliché. This understanding of photography is supposed to objectively has dominated evolution of its in arts. In the early part of its history, photography was sometimes be little as a mechanical arts because of its independence on technology. In truth, however, photography is not the automatic process that is implied by the use of a camera. Although the camera usually limits the photographer to depicting existing object rather than imaginary or interpretive views. The skilled photographer can introduce creativity into the mechanical reproduction process. The image can be notified by different lenses and filters. The type of sensitive material used to record the image is further controlled, and the contrast between highlight and shadow can be changed by variation in development. In printing the negative, the photographer has a wide choice in the physical surface of the paper. The contrast and image color, the photographer also may set up a completely artificial scene to photograph. So, that would be all. Thank you. and God bless everyone.
There are 7 principles of art and design in photography: balance, rhythm, pattern, emphasis, contrast, unity, and movement. From the foundation of visual art, using the 7 principles allows you take greater control of your photographic practice. This will be lead to better photos and more photographic opportunities. What are the duties and responsibilities of photography? Photographers typically do the following: market or advertise service to attract clients, analyze and plan the composition of photographs, use various photographic techniques and lighting equipment, captures subjects in professional quality photography, enhance the subject appearance with natural or artificial light. Characteristic of a good photography. We have once said that a good way to learn photography is by reading books, but not books dedicated to the photographic technique, but investing part of our time in deepening the photographic art itself. This kind of a reading is very enriching because it helps you understood photography and take it to another level, at a more artistic level, far from the typical exercises where we must place the subject in one of the strong points of the rules of thirds. Characteristic of good photography. Number 1, intelligent composition. This is perhaps the most technical part of what a good photography would be. Normally, we tend to consider a good image to be one that is correctly focused, well exposed, composed according to the rules. A clean photography, but we have often said that a perfect photograph does not have to be good. So, important thing for making a good photograph is to know what we are doing, and above all, to be aware that yes, a blurry photograph can be good. Also, grainy photograph can be good. Yes, a photograph with an unbalanced composition can be good as long as there is an intention in it, as long as the artist knows why he's doing it. And in order to break the rules in this way, one must first know them. Number 2, it provokes a recreation. In other words, it draws attention. On more than one's occasion, I have come across image, my own and those of others, that have kept me hooked on the paper or the screen for long periods of time while looking at them. There are images that have something that attracts your eyes. Good images are attractive in natural way and for many reasons. For their composition, for their protagonists, for the story they tell, for the eye of the artist who took them. Many of their things cannot be provoked, so focus on expressing things with your image. That's the best way to get good pictures. Number 3, it offers more than one layer of experience. Contemplating a good photograph is always a complete experience. A good image is not just observed. A high quality photograph must be read. It must have different expressive planes. A good photograph is expressive in its entirety. How do you generate different layers of experience with a photograph? The easiest way is to use compositions and depth of field to tell different things. Don't focus on the foreground. Contextualize our stories. Hides details throughout the composition to our image. In short, don't make our image too obvious. When we see a photography, the first glance already give us a lot of information. A good photograph does not stop at that first glance. It hides little pieces of information all along the picture whose function is, besides completing all the sense of the work, to challenge the eye of the one who sees the image to look for them. Number 4. It has its context in the photograph. Good photographs have a cultural context. They define a now and are here. They serve to tell stories or to show events, characters, objects. This context is also conditioned by the reference that both the first and the public of the image may have, and all this is involved in order to give meaning to a good photograph. Number 5, it contains an idea. This does not mean that good photographs need to convey a profound message that invites everyone who sees them to reflect on some important subject in life. An idea can take many forms. It can be a concept, yes, but it can also be a concrete way of looking at reality, or a concrete way showing it through photographic composition, or by choosing the dirty mind exhibition values to do it the way that the artist is most interested in. The important thing is that photography transmitting something. Number 6, they do not imitate. And by not imitating, you don't want to convey the concept of originality. It refers to the fact of not copying other artists. Photography as an art has limitation. It is true, but it also has very specific characteristics that make it unique, just as other types of art have their own. A good photograph explores and exploits its own medium, and this means having a clear idea of what photograph exhales, etc. There are all characteristics of good photography as an artistic medium. A good photographer is aware of all this, and a good photograph makes it evident to everyone who sees it. So a good photograph is first of all a photograph. It should not try to imitate other artistic media, although it may seem silly. It is so. What is a good photograph? It is a conscious, meaningful image. Is it easy to get a good photograph if we simply follow the 6 points that define what a good photograph is it may seem easy to achieve, but the secret of this 6 point is to do it with grace and strength. When we shoot, you end up merging with the camera. This ends up being one more extension of your body, and when you achieve this and you also have clear what you want to achieve, when you press the shutter, the image happens and good photographs appears. There are the seven elements of photography: line, shape, form, textures, colors, size, and depth. As a photography artist, your knowledge and awareness of these different elements can be vital to the success of your composition and help convey the meaning of your photograph. Principles of photographic composition. The basis principle of any artist's composition concern things which influence the way in which the components are used in a landscape. The components such things as ground form, structures, and plants. Inside a building, the components are the walls, floor, ceiling, furniture, doors, perhaps the people in the room, etc. When photographing people, the components are the background, sky, tree, etc., the foreground, the persons, their clothing, anything they might be holding. Always, you need to see the components of a photograph organized into a pleasing composition of space to satisfy the effect desired by the photographer. Sometimes, the photographer is able to move components to achieve a better composition. At other times, the photographer must move himself to a position which can be used or discussed below. Unity. By grouping, placing, or arranging in such a way that several individual components appears to have a sense of oneness and unity is achieved. A desirable appearance needs to be achieved from all points of view. Repetitive patterns can be used to create unity. Alone or water surface spreading through a garden can be used to the other components, together creating a sense of unity. Unity can be achieved by using components of similar textures, forming or color, or by including an area as a unit. Next, balance. This refers to equilibrium, either symmetrical or asymmetrical, with symmetrical balance. There is duplication on either side of an imaginary line of components in terms of line, form, or color. Asymmetrical balance involves dissimilar placement of different objects or masses on either side of the same sort of imaginary line, but in a way that equilibrium excess the pictures does not seem to have too much on one side and not enough on other. Proportion. This refers to proper sizing or scaling of component in relation to each other and to total picture. A 200-foot tree is not in proportion in a small court. Either is a bonsai in proportion in the middle of a large expanses of lawn. Next is harmony. This refers to the way different parts of the picture fit together harmony is usually the objective, however, not always in all parts of the design. A photo with harmony has relaxing effect on the viewer. Contrast is an opposition to harmony and should not be overdone. Occasional contrast to the harmony of a picture will create an eye-catching feature in the photograph, adding life and interest to an area which would otherwise be dead if all of the foliages is a similar textures or color. By having one plant of a different texture or color in the middle, a contrast is created which provides a local point in the garden. A tall adult standing amongst a group of children, or a well-dressed man amongst a group of bikini-clad women provides a contrast effect. Types of photography. There are photography, landscape photography, fashion photography, food photography. Now, what is the history of photography? I would take page and page to really do the story of photography justice. However, I am going to dive into a brief photography poignant history of photography that covers some of the biggest milestones in the progression of this art form. Whether you are a professional photographer and a pro shooter of photography, or just someone who takes photos as a hobby, it is important to know the history of photography to really appreciate this art form what is. Here are some of the biggest highlights and milestones in the unique history of photography. Photography is a fantastic endeavor in which are coexist with technology. Any complete history of photography will also include a history of the camera timeline. This is also so because the story of photography is intractably tied up with all of the many technological advances in optics. Cameras and the recording medium used to capture image. The history of photography timeline is a history of art and science together. Many photography timeline start with the first known photography by Nicephore Nippy in 1827. But it actually goes much further back than that. It goes back to a time and technology before lenses, cameras, and even film. Photographs could tell stories and provide evidence. At the same time, this became the true power of photography from the crude beginnings of a strange projector, light box, named camera, obscura to modern day smartphones and the SIR cameras. Photographic medium have come a long way. If you're interested in learning how things have evolved over the years in the wonderful world of cameras, then let's take a dive into the history of photography. Photography has played such a vital role in human history. Before photography, information was relayed by written word of mouth or by illustrations and paintings. The advent of photograph heralded the first and only way to fully replicate something a person saw with no error, no exaggeration to the history, and no tampering. It was one of the greatest breakthroughs in human technology. So, that will be all. Thank you and mabuhay tayong lahat.